Ziria had never seen herself as a savior, but when her aunt and uncle left town on urgent business, she knew she had no choice but to step up. Family was family, and when you were asked to carry the load, you carried it with strength. Her cousins, Tavon and Marcellis, were teenagers, full of attitude, quick tempers, and loud voices. And then there was little Honora, the youngest, just 7 years old, a tender spirit still clinging to dolls and bedtime prayers. Ziria worked long hours at the nursing home, and yet, she came home every evening with enough patience to cook their meals, help with homework, and listen to their worries. "Don't burn yourself out," her neighbor Malia once told her. But Ziria only smiled and said, "They're my people. If I don't hold them, who will?" During those weeks, she grew close to the children in ways she hadn't expected. Marcellis opened up about being bullied at school, and Tavon, though stubborn, confided his dream of producing music. Ziria encouraged him, even downloading a beat-making app on her phone so he could experiment. And Honora, sweet Honora, clung to her side as if Ziria were her whole world. By the time her aunt and uncle returned, Ziria was exhausted but proud. She had given everything she had, her time, her money, her love. She expected gratitude, or at the very least, acknowledgement. What she didn't expect was the storm that came with their return. It started with a whisper that grew into a roar. Her aunt, Saralith, came into the living room one evening with narrowed eyes. "Ziria, I heard some things," she said, her tone sharp. "The children told us you were rough with them. That you shouted, that you starved them, that you treated them poorly." Ziria's heart dropped. "What? That's not true. I cooked, But Saralith raised a hand. "Don't lie to me. My babies wouldn't make up something like that." Her uncle, Varric, stood behind his wife, arms folded, expression unreadable. "We trusted you," he said coldly. "And now we're hearing you mistreated them." Ziria's knees weakened. "Mistreated? I gave up everything to care for them. Ask them again. Ask them properly." But Tavon and Marcelli stood there, silent, heads bowed, refusing to meet her eyes. Even little Honora, who once clung to her, stayed close to her mother's side, silent and nervous. It felt like betrayal stabbing through her chest. The very ones she had loved and protected had turned their backs on her. Ziria sat in her room that night, the walls closing in like a cage. She replayed everything, every meal she cooked, every late-night story she told Honora, every time she gave up her own comfort to make sure those children felt safe. And yet here she was, branded a villain in her own family's home. She could hear Saralitha's voice echoing downstairs, sharp and heated. "I can't believe she would treat them like that. We trusted her. We left our children in her hands." Varric's low baritone followed. "Don't worry, love. We'll deal with her. Blood or no blood, wrong is wrong." Ziria pressed her palms to her face. "God, why?" she whispered. When she walked out to face them, her voice shook but carried strength. "I never harmed your children. Everything I did with love. If they said otherwise, they are lying, or they're scared to speak the truth." Saralith narrowed her eyes. "Are you calling my babies liars?" "I'm calling them confused," Ziria said, tears brimming. "Because the truth is, I sacrificed for them. I missed work shifts. I went hungry so they could eat more." "Enough," Varric snapped. "We don't want to hear excuses. Pack your things and leave." The words cut deep. Ziria stumbled back, clutching her chest as though he had struck her physically. She had no power, no witness, no defense. Only her broken heart. The next morning, Ziria carried her bag down the cracked front steps. Her neighbor, Malia, noticed the tears streaking her face. "Z, what's going on? Why you leaving with your bag like that?" "They accused me," Ziria said softly, barely able to form the words. "Said I mistreated the children." Malia's mouth dropped open. What? Girl, I saw you running yourself dry for them kids. Every day, you were hustling, working, cooking, running errands. I even told you to slow down. Ziria nodded, trembling. But none of that matters now. They don't believe me. Malia shook her head in disbelief. That's foul. Straight up foul. Don't you let this break you, Z. People got a way of twisting the truth when it suits them. Ziria forced a smile, though pain cracked through. I'll be all right. But deep inside, she wasn't sure. Word spread fast in their neighborhood. Families who once greeted Ziria with warmth now gave her side eyes. A woman at the corner store muttered under her breath, "That's the one who couldn't even treat her own cousins right." Even at church, she felt the sting of whispers. The congregation that once praised her for being so giving now looked at her with suspicion. During one service, Elder Brantice pulled her aside. "Sister Ziria, I don't know what happened, but I'll pray for you. God sees the truth." Ziria's eyes filled with tears. "Thank you, Elder. That's all I ask, that he lets the truth shine." But prayers didn't erase the shame. And lies, once planted, grew faster than truth could follow. One afternoon, Ziria saw Tavon and Marcelis on the street, laughing with friends. She gathered her courage and called out, "Tavon! Marcelis!" They froze. Their laughter died, replaced with guilt. "Why'd you lie?" Ziria demanded, her voice trembling. "Why'd you tell your parents those things about me?" Marcelis looked away. Tavon scuffed his shoe against the ground. Finally, Tavon muttered, "We didn't mean it like that." "Didn't mean it? You destroyed me." Ziria's voice cracked. Marcelis whispered, "Mama said she didn't like how close we were to you. She thought we was forgetting her. So, we just told her what she wanted to hear." Ziria staggered back, the truth slicing her open. They lied to keep their mother happy. She wasn't hated, just sacrificed. Armed with this truth, Ziria marched back to Saralitha's home. She knocked hard until the door swung open. Saralitha's face twisted. "What do you want?" "I want you to know the truth," Ziria said firmly. "Your children admitted it. They only said those things because you pushed them to. You didn't like how close they grew to me." Saralitha's eyes flickered, then hardened. "They're children. You can't believe everything they say." "I believe it because it makes sense," Ziria shot back. "You felt threatened by me loving them. But don't you ever accuse me again. I carried them when you were gone, and I'll never regret that." Varric appeared behind his wife, arms crossed. "Leave, Ziria. This is not your house." Ziria swallowed hard, but her voice didn't falter. "Fine. But remember, truth don't stay buried forever." Ziria found herself drifting, no longer welcome in the spaces she once called home. Nights were spent in Malia's spare room, where she lay awake, staring at the ceiling. Her phone stayed silent. Not a call, not a message. Family she once laughed with now treated her as an outcast. Malia would knock on her door. "Girl, eat something. You can't let them starve you in spirit." But food didn't fill the hollowness in her chest. What hurt the most was not the false words, but the silence of those she loved. Weeks passed. Ziria tried to rebuild her life, little by little. She picked up extra shifts at the nursing home, pouring herself into work. The elders there became her comfort. Miss Jandis, a sharp-tongued but kind-hearted resident, grabbed her hand one evening. "Baby, don't let people's lies break you. I seen the way you care. A woman like you don't fall, she rise." Ziria smiled faintly. "Thank you, Miss Jandis." For the first time in weeks, hope flickered. Maybe she could rise. The annual Juneteenth festival brought the whole neighborhood together. Ziria debated staying home, afraid of more whispers, but Malia insisted. "Girl, You better walk with your head high. Don't let nobody steal your light. At the festival, she saw Saralitha's family. The children spotted her but looked away, shame written all over their faces. Saralith whispered to another woman, who gave Ziria a cold stare. Still, Ziria stood tall. She bought sweet corn, watched the performances, even laughed at the little kids dancing. For a moment, she remembered who she was, a woman of strength, not a shadow of lies. Late that night, after the festival, Ziria overheard two women talking near the food stands. Saralith been running her mouth about Ziria, one said. But I don't believe it. I seen with my own eyes how she cared for them kids. Hum, the other replied. Sometimes people project their own guilt. Ziria's heart leaped. Maybe the tide was shifting. Maybe truth was starting to slip through the cracks. Days later, Honora slipped away from her mother and came to Malia's porch where Ziria sat. Her little eyes brimmed with tears. Auntie Z, she whispered, I'm sorry. Mama told me not to say nothing, but I love you. You never hurt us. You took care of me. Ziria's heart melted. She knelt and hugged the child tightly. I love you too, baby. Don't you ever forget that. Honora sniffled. One day, I'll tell everybody the truth. That promise gave Ziria strength like no other. Slowly, whispers began to change. People who once doubted her now remembered the countless times they'd seen her helping the children, feeding them, laughing with them. Malia said, See, girl? The truth always got a way of shining. But Ziria stayed cautious. Rumors can turn quick both ways. I won't breathe easy until the children themselves speak up. One evening, Varric came to her quietly. His voice was low, his face tired. Ziria, he said, I don't know what to believe anymore. I see the way people talk. I see the guilt in my children's eyes. Part of me wonders if maybe we were wrong. Ziria looked him dead in the eyes. You were wrong, and your silence almost destroyed me. Varric swallowed hard. I'll speak with them again. The confrontation finally came in the living room. Varric sat his children down. Saralith paced angrily, but he silenced her. Tavon, Marcellis, Honora, did your cousin mistreat you? Silence. Then Marcellis whispered, No, sir. Tavon followed, voice cracking. We only said it 'cause Mama didn't like us being so close to her. Saralith gasped. Don't you dare. But little Honora burst into tears. It's true, Daddy. Auntie Z loved us. She took care of us when y'all was gone. The room erupted in chaos, but for Ziria, it was the first breath of justice. The truth, at last, had begun to unfold. The truth cut through the room like a blade, but Saralith refused to surrender. She pointed at her children with trembling hands. You ungrateful little liars, she shouted. After everything I've done for you, you'd turn on me for her? Ziria stood calmly, though her heart was pounding. They're not liars, Saralith. They're finally free to speak. Varric's jaw tightened. Saralith, enough. I've seen the signs. You pushed them. Saralith glared at him. So now you take her side too? Over me. Over your own wife. Her words rattled the walls, but for the first time, Varric didn't back down. He looked at his children and then at Ziria. I can't ignore this anymore. Saralith stormed out, slamming the door so hard the frame shook. The house became a battlefield. Saralith refused to speak to her children, walking past them with cold silence. She treated Varric like a traitor, her words sharp and venomous. At the same time, the children began to visit Ziria secretly. They slipped notes under Malia's door, or caught her after school. Auntie Z, I'm sorry, Marcellis whispered one evening. I wish we could take it back. Ziria hugged him tightly. Baby, truth can't erase the pain, but it can heal it. Keep standing in it. Word of the children's confession spread. Malia, who had sharp ears and a sharper tongue, carried the story through the neighborhood like wildfire. Haram, she told the women at the beauty shop. Them kids admitted it. Said Ziria never harmed them. Their mama was jealous. The story turned heads. Some people still doubted, but others began to nod knowingly. I knew it, one woman said. I seen the way Ziria cared for them children. She too gentle for all that. As the truth spread, Saralitha's world began to shrink. Neighbors she once gossiped with now avoided her. Even at church, people looked at her differently. During service, she reached out to hug Sister Corvale, but the woman stepped back. I can't stand with lies, Saralith. The sting of rejection hit her pride, but instead of softening, it hardened her heart. At home, she snapped at her children and gave Ziria colder stares than ever. One evening, Varric came to Malia's porch where Ziria sat with her Bible open. His voice was low, heavy with shame. I wronged you, he said plainly. I believed lies over love. I didn't defend you when you needed me most. I can't take that back, but I can own it. Ziria studied him for a long moment, then nodded. You hurt me, Varric. Deep. But admitting it is a start. He bowed his head. I'll make it right. Whatever it takes. Encouraged by their father's shift, the children found their voices. At school, when classmates whispered, Marcelli's raised his chin. My cousin didn't mistreat us. We lied, 'cause our mama told us to. It spread fast. Teachers, students, neighbors, everyone began to hear it from the children's own mouths. When Ziria heard, tears streamed down her face. They're braver than they know, she whispered to Malia. At the next church service, Elder Brantice invited the children to speak. The congregation watched as Tavon, Marcellis, and Honora stood before them. Tavon's voice shook, but he said clearly, Auntie Ziria never hurt us. She took care of us. We lied, 'cause Mama told us to. We're sorry. Gasps filled the sanctuary. Elder Brantice lifted his hands. Let this be a reminder. Truth may stumble, but it will not fall. Ziria wept openly, her spirit finally vindicated. The public shame was too much for Saralith. At home, she lashed out, but her words had no power anymore. The children no longer feared her silence or her anger. One night, Ziria heard from Varric that Saralith locked herself in the bedroom, crying. She don't know how to face people now, he admitted. Ziria felt a strange mix of anger and pity. Maybe now she'll learn that pride can burn down everything you love. Though truth had surfaced, scars remained. Ziria still felt the sting of betrayal, especially when she walked past places where people once whispered about her. Healing wasn't instant, it was a long walk. But she also felt the children's love, stronger than before. Honora drew her pictures with the words, I love you, Auntie Z. Marcellis asked her to come watch his basketball games. Tavon played beats he created, proud that she had believed in his dream. For Ziria, these were the small stitches closing her wounds. By the time autumn leaves painted the streets, Ziria stood taller. She had been crushed by lies, but not destroyed. She had been shamed, but not silenced. At church, people now greeted her with warmth again. At the nursing home, the elders celebrated her strength. In the neighborhood, whispers had turned into respect. Malia clasped her hand one evening and said, See, girl? I told you. Truth don't stay buried. You rose from it. Ziria smiled softly. Yes, but I rose with scars. And I'll never forget who put them there. And though her heart carried wounds, it also carried resilience, the kind no accusation could ever take away again. Saralith moved through the house like a ghost, but her bitterness was loud. Every clink of a plate, every sigh, every glare at her children spoke her rage. You embarrassed me, she hissed one night at Marcellus. Do you know how people look at me now? Marcellus stood firm. Mama, you embarrassed yourself. We just told the truth. Seralith slapped the table, her hands trembling. Ungrateful! But deep down, she knew her grip on them was slipping. While Seralith spiraled, Ziria began to bloom. She enrolled in evening classes for nursing certification, encouraged by her supervisor at the nursing home. You got skill, Z, her supervisor said. But more than that, you got heart. People like you don't just work this job, they transform it. Ziria smiled for the first time in months. Maybe I do deserve more. Step by step, she built not just survival, but a future. One cool Saturday morning, Varric knocked on Malia's porch. Ziria hesitated before answering. I know I got no right, he said softly. But the children want to see you. They miss you. Ziria's face tightened. And their mother? He sighed. She won't admit it, but she's breaking. Pride's eating her alive. Ziria looked away. That's her path to walk. But the children, they'll always have a place with me. Tavon, Marcellus, and Honora came to see Ziria, their faces lighting up when they spotted her. Honora leapt into her arms. Auntie Z. Tavon shuffled his feet. We been thinking. We don't want to keep living in lies. We want to spend more time with you, no matter what Mama says. Ziria hugged them all tightly, tears streaking down her cheeks. Then we'll carve out our own space. Truth will be our house. It couldn't last without a clash. Seralith stormed to Malia's porch one evening, her voice like thunder. You stealing my children from me now, she spat. Ziria rose slowly, her face calm. No, Seralith. I don't need to steal what comes freely. They come to me because they trust me. They're mine, Seralith shouted, eyes wild. And they're human beings with voices of their own, Ziria answered firmly. You can't control love. You can only earn it. For the first time, Seralith's rage faltered. The weight of isolation finally broke Seralith. Late at night, Varric found her crying on the floor. I lost everything, she sobbed. My children, my respect, my pride. Varric knelt beside her. You didn't lose it, Seralith. You pushed it away. But you can still choose differently. Her face was streaked with tears, her voice hoarse. I don't know how. Varric placed a hand on her shoulder. Start with the truth. It took weeks, but eventually, Seralith stood before the church congregation. Her hands trembled as she held the microphone. I wronged my sister, she said, her voice cracking. I let jealousy twist me. I pushed my children to lie. And I tried to destroy the one person who showed them love when I could not. Ziria, I'm sorry. Gasps filled the sanctuary. Ziria's eyes filled with tears. Slowly, she rose, walked down the aisle, and embraced Seralith. The congregation erupted in applause. Elder Brantice lifted his hands. This is what grace looks like. Healing didn't happen overnight, but the apology cracked open a new path. Seralith and Ziria began to meet weekly, awkward at first, but slowly peeling back the layers of hurt. One afternoon, Seralith admitted, I was scared they'd love you more than me. Ziria reached across the table. Love ain't a pie, Seralith. Giving me a slice don't take away yours. Seralith's eyes brimmed. I wish I'd seen that sooner. Months later, Ziria walked across the stage to receive her nursing certification. The children cheered loudly, holding a banner that read, We love you, Auntie Z. Malia whistled from the crowd, waving her hands. Even Seralith and Varric stood, clapping with pride. Ziria felt the weight of her journey pressing behind her, but also the light of her triumph before her. She had been torn down by lies, but she rose higher than she ever dreamed. On a quiet Sunday afternoon, Ziria sat on her porch, Nora in her lap, Tavon and Marcelis lounging nearby. Sarilith sat across from her, calmer now, humbled. "Family ain't perfect," Ziria said softly, her eyes on the sky. "Sometimes it wounds you deeper than strangers ever could. But truth is the only healer. It may take time, it may take tears, but it always rises." Sarilith nodded, whispering, "And pride destroys faster than any lie." The children leaned against Ziria, their trust whole again. And in that moment, the scars didn't matter. What mattered was survival, love, and the strength to rise again.